This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to Aflac for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
And welcome again to another edition of I Love Black People. We've been blessed today to have a wonderful brother that's so helpful and always encouraging, and been in many ways a mentor and a guide for me and so much of the work that we're doing. And I think it's important to hear what he has to say, almost like an oracle, as somebody who's going to make sure that we have a North Star that's super bright, showing us the way. I just want to again welcome my brother, your brother, our incredible brother, Brother Ronald Moten. Welcome to I Love Black People, brother.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
All right. For those who don't know, and they definitely should because we've had you on the show before, can you just give a little bit of your background and the things you've done to actually share love, empower love, and spread love throughout our community?
Well, I would just say that, in short, I follow the footsteps of a lot of leaders who work to uplift humanity and people of color. I would call them social scientists. So I try to study their art, peace, and art of upliftment and empowerment without getting wiped off the country, off the map while doing so, like many of them were. So, that comes with, doing truces, mediations, empowering people, fighting for equity, fighting for inclusion for all people, but in particular colored people who have been annihilated almost by the disparities that we see in health, education, acquisition of land, acquisition of power, other than the power that we possess inside. So those are some of the things that I've been doing, and I've always done this by connecting with good people, no matter what color, what party, what affiliation, or whatever they are, as long as they're good people. Throughout history, the good people and music and culture are the things that have uplift our spirits, our spirituality to beat the odds. And that's what I pretty much try to do all my life, organically, and, through the teachings of others and things that God has just installed in me organically.
All right. And how long, I think, again, we both are 69 babies. How long have you been doing this? What even brought you into this space of making sure that our people were given the proper opportunities that they have? We have, a lot of these listeners, they work in their everyday job, or they may not even know how to even make that leap. What's a part of your story?
So first and foremost, I would say I believe it's in the bloodline. I have aunts and uncles who, always fought and stood up for what was right. But I also found out like 15 years ago that Malcolm X was my cousin. So I believe it's a lineage thing where we were raised to always fight back, fight for humanity, fight for what's right, even when it's not popular. And I came home from prison in October 1994, actually. It was close to 95, but October 94. And I joined an organization by the name of Ceasefire Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters. And that's when my journey started, with activism, community organizing, and empowerment of good people in our community who often are neglected and are not given the platforms to shine, the platforms to grow into who they were born to be.
Well, you said 94. So now we're 2023. So that's quite a bit of time in the space. What about brothers and sisters who may have spent those years that you've been toiling in the vineyard and doing the good work, getting in good trouble? How do we talk to the brothers and sisters who may not have, because of whatever their circumstances, but now they're really interested in getting engaged? Like maybe they didn't get engaged in '94 or 2004, or even 2014, but they're right now looking at, I see all these things happening in our community. What are some of the things would you suggest or recommend some of our brothers and sisters who are interested now? They may even be our age or a little bit younger, Gen X or even millennial. How do if your background is not in the formal struggle of our community and you're not related by bloodline, what are some of the things would you say, or steps, or how should a person go about doing that?
I would say that all people have a strength and a talent. I mean, I know people who I've worked with who have an eighth grade education, like many of our ancestors who built communities with eighth grade education.
Go ahead.
And they had strengths and talents because I'll say in particular, one young person that I worked with who started a gang in Washington, D.C., that took over downtown Washington. They spent $1 million a year on a police detail. And that person called me from prison one day when I was meeting with his sister. And he was like, why you don't work with the gay children? So we had a gay gang in D.C. I know people think that's crazy, but a gay gang that was extremely violent because they were marginalized. They were, all of them were raped as children. All of them didn't have a father in their life. And all of them had a mother on drugs, mostly crack. And they were abused by the community, abused in the schools, neglected, and pretty much tossed aside. And then they formed a gang and fought back and became violent. And I worked with them. But the person who started the gang had an eighth grade education and was the smartest person, because when I came to him with opportunity, Star took the opportunity and stuck with the opportunity. And I say stuck with it. A lot of our people in our communities now, they think that you can get something for nothing. I tell them, look, Booker T. Washington said it best. You can't get something for nothing. So a lot of times we miss our blessings because we're not willing to stick with things through the thick and thin and then reap our fruits from our labor. And Star and a few other of them did this, and now they own over almost $2 million worth of property with me in historic Anacostia. And we're doing the Go-Go Music Museum and restaurants and a creative economy training for our young people to create a positive content, positive music, and learn their history and culture. And I would say to anybody, look, everybody has a strength. Find out what your strength is and make yourself valuable. Make yourself valuable to your community. Make yourself valuable to the world, and then help your family, help your community, but also make sure that people don't pimp you and you're compensated for your strengths that God gave you.
Yeah, I think you bring a good point about the pimp part. I think sometimes when you do something because of your passion or your love for our people, that sometimes, especially in a capitalist system, can be exploited. And how have you seen that? I mean, this is probably for some of the folks who've been in this space longer, and I think we've both seen sometimes even some of our leaders, who feel like they've given so much and they missed out, and next thing you know, they start doing things maybe the wrong way because they wait till they get bitter and whatnot. How does one who's already in the struggle, who's a part of it and really loves our people and is giving their first fruits, and yet they see other folks doing well while they still are maybe struggling but they're struggling not because they're not competent and amazing, but they're committed to a struggle that doesn't necessarily always pay.
Well, I say two things. It's about balance. And you can't, one thing that I learned was from civil rights leaders who I worked under, who worked with King, was most of them died broke and with a broken heart often because they gave everything. And when it's time for them to go, time for them to leave their families, but something behind, it was nothing there. So we had to have balance. You have to have balance. And you have to make sure that you're looking out for yourself and your family while you're looking out for others as well. But the other thing is, far as the pimp stuff, what people do is they come and study great people who have talent, raw talent, but might not have the network, might not have access to capital, or just to get the work that they're doing out to the masses so they can be compensated and can teach others. So what people do, they normally come into our community, act like they come to help. They study us, they study our strengths, they study the intellectual property that we develop from our experiences, our challenges, all the things, trials and tribulations that we've been through, that God took us through, so we can be a blessing to our community and the world. And then they take it, they perfect it, and then they come back and try to sell it to us. So anything I would tell people is, you ever go do something, or you speak to somebody, and then 6 months later they come back telling you exactly what you told them, like they created it. I mean,
go ahead.
That's happened to people of color for almost everything invented. Half of it or more came from us, and it's like people selling to us like we didn't invent it.
Almost all of it comes from us. I mean, it's not because we're better, but if you look at the first civilized people, we had thousands of years to perfect civilization before some cultures even came out of their caves or came out of their circumstances. But they would come I still run into people who think the Italians invented noodles. I said, well, no, they didn't have noodles in Italy. They went to China and got the noodles. But I mean, right. Even something as basic as pasta, folks thinking they came from one place, but they literally learned it from another. So I think what you just said is so helpful, and not just to have a conversation about history, because I think sometimes we get caught up with history where it's not so helpful presently. What you just said was a context about history that we need to understand for the present, how people appropriate, take. And these are oftentimes be other Black folks, other folks that look like us, coming, taking what we have, and then repackaging and then claiming that they're the ones who did it, and then leaving people feel that the actual originators feel wanting or feel, empty inside.
Well,
so, I'm sorry.
The other thing they do is they come in and study what you do and then try to discredit you so you can't move your mission forward. And they try to discredit you so nobody will listen to you, or then you have to go through them to and work for them. And I talk about this stuff all the time. Like, we live in a capitalist society, and then when we try the capitalist way, a lot of times we get battered down. Well, what do you mean, Ron? Okay, so we have all these nonprofits in Washington, D.C. that started in where I grew up at, Uptown, and off of U Street, where you used to have your businesses at. And many of them started off as mom and pops. And then they blow up. Then they buy the land. Then they get $1 million budgets. And then they cash in. They sell the property. They sell the business. They sell the land. Then they go on the poor side of town, the next poor side of town, buy some property real cheap after they cashed in, right? Then they build the property up, right? Then they start taking the grants from the smaller nonprofits that have been doing the work when nobody wanted to be there, when there wasn't even any money there. Then they tell the nonprofits and the little people who've been doing everything, for decades, hey, come work for me, because you're not going to get no money no more unless you come through me, right? Then you go work for them. They get big. They get the millions to get all the money. But, I tell people all the time, I'm not even saying they're bad people. I don't have to say that. But what's the difference between them and Amazon? So if you got a problem with Amazon, how do you not have a problem with this model? And they selectively pick where they have problems. They selectively pick what they have problems with.
And you're not talking about you're talking about nonprofits coming up with a scheme where they literally make the people on the ground have to come through them, even though the people on the ground probably know more about what's happening. They just don't have access, and these people are purposely blocking them.
Right.
And literally, and these are nonprofits that promote themselves as somehow helping the people, and yet in reality, they do it off sucking the blood out of the folks on the ground who are really building in a way that actually is sustainable for the people in the community.
Exactly.
So how do I mean, I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but how do we defeat that? Like, that could be, because we got brothers, because they always act like we're not doing anything in our community, but these folks are co-opting our communities and co-opting the work and the ideas, the intellectual property that's coming out of our community, and they claim it for themselves, and then say, "Well, your people didn't do anything anyway." Like, how do we?
I was talking to a friend of mine, Scotty, and he said something that made a lot of sense. He said, "Mo, why are the pyramids still in Egypt?" And I said, "I don't know why." He said, "Because they couldn't pick them up and take them." So we have to create things that people can't pick up and take away from us. So when you structure what you're doing, the question is, how do you protect it to the point where people can't pick them up and steal and take it like they've done everything else? And then how do you challenge the systems? Like, it was a disparity study that came out in DC. And what I do is now I just use their data against them. We got one of the most progressive cities in the world, Washington, D.C. So how the hell we 47% of the population that Black people only get less than 8% of the contracts? How if we 47% of the population, Black people in D.C. only get 8% of the property land that's given away in Washington, D.C. by the government? So when you start talking about these numbers, we start realizing this ain't no Republican thing. This ain't no Democratic thing. This is a systematic thing. And we got to address the system, right? And let people know you're not going to keep pimping us. We know what you're doing. Either you with us or you're not with us. And if they're not with us, we got to stop communicating. We got to stop working with them, because even though we don't have all the money, we got all the culture, we got the brains, and we got God and the power with us. And we take that away, and we don't let people dampen or steal or corrupt our spirit. We're going to win anyway, just like we did when we had Black Wall Street and Rosewood and all those other things, right? We just got to get back to that. And then when people come and do fair business with us, no matter who they are, what color they are, whatever, we do good business together. But if not, we just do business amongst ourselves like everybody else is doing. And we can't let in a city where we 47% of the population allow Blacks to only get less. If it's 8%, that means we probably only get 4%, to be honest with you. Because we still have other brothers and sisters, Asians and Latinos and other people in our who are people of color, but I'm talking about Blacks.
Go ahead.
Right? We get less than 8%. That's criminal. That's criminal. So that's why when these progressives come around me talking all that smack about how much they care about us, how in a city we have a council that's full of progressives, right? And you watch the moves they play on the chessboard when budget season come around, and all that stuff they be preaching throughout the year changes because they move the money to their friends. And then when a Black politician moves money to one of their friends, it's corruption, it's cronyism, it's this, it's that, and the other, right? When we try to be like them, that's what it is. That's what it's called. Or if we just go through a fair process of what's supposed to happen, which is you bid on a contract and the best contract is chosen, it's still considered a crime.
Yeah, our success is always criminalized. I think that's something I'm noticing at whatever level. It could be in sports, it could be in entertainment, it could be in the business space, it could be in politics. For some reason, our success is criminalized, like globally. The criminalization of Black leadership, it could be an African leader, it could be a leader in any city in the United States. For some reason, there's always like a cloud over the success of us, but you can have a European in Africa be successful, and no one's wondering how that can be possible.
Bro, let me explain this to you again. I took a gay guy. I'm a straight Black man, and I did the humanitarian type thing. They came to me for help. I got little help, and I still pulled off a miracle. I stopped a gang that they were spending $1 million a year with a police detail and gallery place downtown Washington, D.C., right? Where they I'm sorry. Where they spend $1 million where all our basketball teams play, like everything is happening down there. They need this e-commerce at the time. It was a hub. And I stopped it without any funding. It was a movie done, a documentary done on it by Steve Sheeny, actor, famous actor, everything. And do you think that I got funding? Do you think that I got the support that a white man would have got if he would have did the same thing?
No.
I created a business. I did all this stuff with no funding. In fact, the people that helped me first was Republicans. And it gave one by the name of Dion Reader. All my straight friends who were many developers who gave back to the community. That's who helped me. Some of the same people we criminalized. And that's why I say, no matter where you go, find good people. Now, the progressives like Robert White and all these other people came on, Kenya McDuffie, all of them came on. The city supported me later. But for 6 years, I had no help. I was waking up every morning trying to figure out how I was going to keep this going because I don't quit on nothing. And these are the things that happen to Black people when we do the right things for the right reasons, seeking the right results.
Go ahead.
Right? We always got to go through a brick wall and a miracle just to make it. And most of us don't make it because we don't have the tenacity to keep going. And a lot of us stop right when we're about to get our blessings or lose our damn mind before we're about to get our blessings because it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Can we just say that? It's a lot. Let's be clear, though. It's not because we weak. It's not because it's a lot. That's just the truth. It's a lot. So that being said, I think, we were talking and I had some ideas and some of them were good, but quite a few of them were bad ideas. You helped me out with that. And you were talking about the impact of social media and how there needs to be some things done in that. And it wasn't the first time. I think you've been talking about this for years, to be candid. But some of the things that we're trying to work with you on is this issue of the negativity and promotion of violence through social media. And with that, you led us with a concept called Creative Content Coalition, pulling together people around the issue of building positive as well as incentivizing and validating positive social media content. Can you talk about some of that and your thoughts? As you brought this issue up.
Yeah, so I got a book that's out called "Don't Mute Mo," and the basically is views of an urban scholar, and it's based upon like 15, 16 op-eds I've written in the Washington Post, Washington Times, the Washington Informer, since 2006. And back then, I predicted everything that's happening now, from the violent video games, which we used to do protests at, outside of the makers of Grand Theft Auto. See all these people selling cars down. That makes sense now, Grand Theft Auto, and what I was saying back then. And the music and everything. And I predicted when you desensitize people enough and you put guns and weapons and things in their hands, and then you break up the family because you're telling people the nuclear family means nothing anymore, right? So we can't have communities without family. I don't know if people know that. So all this stuff is like kind of like nurtured itself and over the last 15 years, and now we have what we have. So the only way we're going to fight that is, deal with those issues that have been destroyed, those institutions, but also when you get bit by a snake, you get the antidote from the snake, right? The venom, you got to take that same venom and use it to heal the people, right? So social media has our young people doing this drill music. It got women that think that they can't be beautiful without getting surgery. We see people die trying to, they're beautiful already. Let's be clear. And they feel like they're nobody because they got to look in a post. And if the posts don't look right on social media, they don't feel good about themselves because half the women and men don't know where they come from. They don't know who they are, don't love themselves, don't love their history because they have no history installed inside of them like other people do. And we see what we see now. We have young people who do anything to get attention. They're not getting love, but they're getting likes.
How can they reach you? What's some ways they can get in contact with you so we can get
you can call me. I'm one of them people that I'm accessible. I'm not running from nobody, never hid. My number is 202-848-4394. You can follow me on social media, Ronald Moten, RONALDMOTEN, or you can email me at ronaldmoten.com. I'm sorry, ronaldmoten at iCloud.com. We got the Go-Go Museum coming. We just started Instagram for that as well. And you can go to don'tmutedc.com, which is another conversation of movement we started to end gentrification and give Black people equity in Washington, D.C. and beyond. So I'm Googleable. You can find out everything about me, everything good and everything bad they said. But guess what? I'm a child of God, and I ain't going to stop until he tell me to stop.
Well, hey, look, on that note, I am because we are, and I definitely wouldn't be me without you, good brother Ronald Moten. Thank you, and stay blessed. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, my friend.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.